Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Wall and I'm joined today by Mr. Ian Macbeth. How are you, pal?
Good, yeah. Still reflecting on the budget from last week. Getting some content created yesterday and getting stuck into kind of what that means. It's going to have quite a big impact in a few different places, I think. So, yeah, a little bit of reflection on that. Obviously, end of October as well, which was a really solid month, which is nice to see, across the group. So, yeah, kind of gearing into November, which is my birthday month as well. I always like November. 11's my favourite number, birthday month. So
left winger then?
Left winger, indeed. Left footer, left wand. Although I played football last night, and I wouldn't say it was a wand. It was more like a broken walking stick. But that's as you get older, your body doesn't do what your mind thinks you can do. But yeah, overall, looking forward to November and still a little bit of reflection on the budget and how that's going to impact our business, the economy, the property market and other industries that we operate in as well. So yeah, what about yourself?
Yeah, well, we had a budget special scheduled for Thursday and we had a conversation about it on Wednesday. I thought, well, actually, there's probably not as much property related stuff in there to discuss for agents, but like you say, quite a lot of business thoughts, and we'll link in well with today's chat about business profit and building a business to exit. So I think that's a very valid point. We'll touch on that. My thoughts on the budget were a general overview, probably not as bad as people expected or not as bad as it could have been. The stamp duty, when I first heard it, I was like, oh, that is not good news. But actually, the second homes part of the market, I don't know about your area, but it's already taken a bit of a battering, and I think it will continue to do so. But I thought it was summarised really well by something Christian Byfield said on social media, which was, if 2% is the difference between a good investment and a bad investment, it was never a good investment in the first place. And I think as we're speaking to clients, I've used that term when speaking about the budget to clients. That was the major property message, the 2%, the additional 2% stamp duty. And I think that is a really good way of framing it. Not many people are buying property to invest for, 2 to 5 years. Generally, it's longer than that. And I think that's worth considering when you're having conversations with any potential buyer about the additional 2% stamp duty, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think because verbally it was spoken about, wasn't it? The increase on the surcharge from 3 to 5. That was the instant thing where estate agents went, oh no, that's going to hurt the lettings book. I don't know what that does to the lettings book. We have to see. Does it make it more valuable? Does it increase the value of a lettings book? Is there less purchasing going on? Are we going to get more aggressive with each other and try and take, landlords off agents and have change of management? I don't know what it's going to do. We have to see. Something will happen with it. And yeah, I totally agree with you. I think if we sort of cast our mind back to when the 3% surcharge was put in, it hit egos for like 6 months and landlords went, no, I'm not doing it. And then all of a sudden it's the new norm. And I think it will probably be something by summer next year. Everyone will just be like, hey. I was actually surprised, and it wasn't verbally discussed. It only came through in the paperwork because it was almost like the stamp duty relief that had been put in 2022 was not extended, which meant that she didn't actually discuss it in the budget. But the first-time buyers are actually hit the hardest out of everyone, which surprises me because of how much the Conservatives and the government have done to try and help the first-time buyers. But to hit them with that kind of 425 relief down to 300, that's the biggest hit that I think we'll see. And that obviously it is going to happen on the 1st of April. So we've now got this 5-month window where people don't really realise that if you buy now, you will save so much tax in that chain of 3 or 4. You could be 20, 30, 40 grand's worth of tax being spent across the group. Get that done before the 1st of April. And you save all of that tax that you don't need to spend after the 1st of April. And as estate agents, that's the bit that we should be talking about.
Absolutely. We had that conversation. Very, very typical in my house. We had that conversation as we were enjoying a bit of time after the kids had gone to bed on Friday night. So that's how exciting my life is, because we had that exact conversation. I didn't expect, and I think it had been reported that they wouldn't extend the stamp duty, but we said, on a Friday night, right, we need to start pushing that on a marketing message. I think a lot of agents need to start pushing that on a marketing message because there's going to be the cutoff. We've been there before with stamp duty holidays. It makes for a very stressful solicitor, industry in April. It is April, isn't it? End of April.
Yeah.
They will be massively stressed. We have to set this up now, and we have to be really proactive. We have to be discussing it with clients now because there are absolutely massive opportunities with that, and we need to be the ones that are informing them. So any house that falls in that bracket, that needs to be all, it puts a time sensitivity on it. I talked on the show back in September. I like selling houses in September because people want to be in for Christmas. It puts that time, time kills deals. When deals go on and on for a long time, it has a really negative impact. This is a massive opportunity to stop that happening because they've got to be done by April, and therefore, they've got to be people that are actively looking now. And it's a great conversation to be having with sellers because inevitably, if you've got somebody in that price bracket, that will affect their price next year.
Yeah, and for the estate agents out there and people on commission and business owners, that obviously paying themselves on dividends, typically Q4 is the month, or is the quarter, sorry, where everyone makes their money. Q1 next year, if you get this right, over the next couple of weeks, Q1 could be your biggest month because typically when there is a stamp duty transition, the month prior is the biggest month that you'll see that year. And March for most estate agents, if you get your listings right in November and December, should be, because by the time people realise it in January, it's too late. You just can't get it done. Solicitors are just not capable of doing it in March, and chains are not capable of being tied up quick enough. The way that mortgages are involved and the banks want their legalities now, it's just not possible. So if people get all of the, where people like stockpile and you've got that whole nonsense about the Boxing Day bounce and all that sort of stuff, where people list houses and then they're not in to answer the calls for all the viewing inquiries. Well done. If people can not do that this year and actually get the listings on at the start of December or the end of November and say, look, this is the time to do it. Don't wait for the new year traffic. Get it done now and save on the tax. Then estate agents will have a phenomenal Q1. And the ones that don't realise and just carry on as normal and bury their head in the sand will miss out on a really big pipeline opportunity in Q1 of next year. So, yeah, there you go. Gave the answer away. Watch the video that I've got coming out in the next couple of weeks on the Avocado socials.
Look, and I think, we talk about not being able to impact what we can't impact, and we'll dive in and introduce today's guest next, but that is a massive opportunity to make your own December market. When as agents do we have the opportunity to make a December market? Well, we do this year. Make December and January, make your own market and do it. Start doing it today. That's what I've just written. Look, I've just written it down on my pad for our team meeting. We've got an away day tomorrow. Going to get out of the business. We're going to plan next year, and that's going to be number one agenda item.
Yeah, it's a big thing to do as well. So yeah, well done for getting that booked in. I actually started arranging that last night on WhatsApp at about 10 o'clock with the guys to get out and do some lunch and do the same thing. But talking about kind of planning and strategy and value, etc. The guest that we've got on this week, Anton, started in agency. He actually started his own business after moving from IT and software 20 years ago. He then ran that business very successfully, grew it. Then we had the whole economic crash. So he's going to discuss what happened there. And then what did he do with the next business that he started in a estate agency, and how did he do it differently? That's going to be what's going to be very interesting. But when he started that business, the second business, he did it with an exit in mind, and he's now managed to achieve that goal and exit, which wasn't necessarily intentional. From knowing Anton, it wasn't intentional, but it just the way it happened. And how did he maximize the value of that exit? How did he do it over the 10 years? What did he change in the years prior to exiting? All of that he's going to share with us. So it's great to have someone come on that's actually going to give people some real value about what they should be doing on a day-to-day or not doing on a day-to-day as an agency owner, to relieve that kind of pressure that you get of thinking, I don't know what I'm doing and building here. I'm just running in a hamster wheel. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting episode. Former owner of Next Gen, couple of months into being unemployed, but very happy about it, I'm sure, from speaking to Anton. So should we get him on, Mark?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's dive in. Let's start the conversation. Anton, thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations on the sale of your business. Let's start, as we start every podcast, with our favourite question. It's, what does world-class real estate look like to you?
So I've got three responses. I actually sat and thought about this. And my question back was, what does it look like to who? So what does it look like to me, as you just said? Does it look like to the seller? Does it look like to me as a brand, or as a personal brand, or as a company? Because I think it depends what people want to achieve. In terms of becoming world class, that's obviously quite a difficult thing to do. If you look at the people like Josh Tesselin in Australia, who's nailed it over there in quite a few days, it's quite a hard feat to achieve, to be world class, especially as a business. On your own, it's probably slightly achievable because of the brand, I think. But what does world class look like to me? Depends what your end goal wants to be. That's a long slog to get to world class, but I think if everybody's goal is to exit, then world class is to be profitable and to make money.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to someone who is a coach yesterday, and they said there's three different views. You've got satellite view, looking down at the world, is like your 10-year project.
Yeah.
You've got your helicopter view, which is like your next 3 years, that sort of aspect of things. And then you've got your mountain view, which is maybe next year, 2025. And depending on what visual you've got, depends on what the goal is, what you can see, what you're trying to achieve. And therefore, it's kind of looking at it from the three different levels of what ultimately the goal is: vision, goal, targets, I guess. Yeah. So kind of from what you're saying there, world class is being aware of those three different levels and having a clear plan to achieve them. Is that right in saying?
Yeah, I think so. I think when everybody starts out, that, let's take your branding or yours, Mark, is that when everybody sets out that they want to become an estate agent because they either like helping people or they've had shit service, which is where I started off in 2004, I think. I had a really bad service. Sorry, I swore, by the way.
That's right.
Okay. Do you bleep out, or do we just?
No, you can shoot loose and shoot fast. It's fine.
You know me. Sometimes I can be a bit sweary, so I do apologise for listening to that. But when I originally started, the reason I started the business back in 2004, a previous business, was because I just had really bad service from an estate agent, and I was in IT and sales at the time, and I just thought, you know what, I can do better myself. So I set up a business back then without a thought of where it was going. It was just, I can do a better job and I'm bored in my job, let's go and do it, and let's go and make some money. And as time went on, that eventually made some money, and I exited in a different way than I did this time in the recession, unfortunately. So I think when everybody starts out, coming back to it and listening to Royston's podcast, it was Mr. Ledbetter's podcast, I think, about personal brand. I think everybody starts off as it's them selling homes and you deal with the client directly. As time goes on, you're only one person, and as you grow bigger and bigger and bigger, you need to employ people. And then that personal brand then becomes a company brand, and then does somebody else carry the personal brand? And then what do you do? Do you just keep selling the next one and a bit more money, and then do you open another branch and keep growing and growing? I think your plan changes as you go along. And I think initially, tell me if I'm wrong, that you just start because most people don't start with an exit in mind. They just start to make some money.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to get you on here, because I think when people are in it and starting out, are they starting with the end in mind? And I think that's always really important. I want to just come back to the answer of world-class real estate. You said about profit, which interestingly enough was the same as Ian's answer. So I want to just talk about that a little bit, because it's something that I think probably isn't discussed as much in the industry as it should be, and it's almost viewed as a little bit of a dirty word. Would you agree? And if so, why do you think that is, and how can we maybe start to realise that actually we need to earn profit to be able to deliver a world-class service?
Yeah, well, I think that obviously the budgets happened last week. which I'll come on to in a minute, but there's that old saying, well, the old saying that I know, I don't know if everybody does, is turnover is vanity, profit is sanity.
Yeah.
That, you could be a busy fool and sell a house for 1,500 quid and do tons of them and be running around like headless chicken. When I first started the business, we charged 395 quid 10 years ago. And I thought, great, we're doing brilliant. There's another 300. And then it went up to 400, and then it went 495, then 795, then a grand all up front. But I think a lot of people don't focus on the profit. We looked at, as a business, doing let onlys, and we canned let onlys because we found out we were wasting money. So although you're getting some money coming in, then if you actually look back and go through how much it costs you with picking up the phone to tenants, dealing with landlords that are generally hard work when they're tenant fined, doing the inventory, moving them in, actually you lose money although you're taking in money. So I think it's super important when you look at it. It's hard to do just with all the rolled up costs nowadays, with the cost of Rightmove, CRM, all that kind of stuff. You pay X amount a month, whether you sell or let one house or 100 houses, sometimes the costs are the same. So to get to a cost per house to sell I think is difficult to achieve with all this, the rolled up costs, although you can do it. But we actually sat back and worked out that on average it costed us as a business about £55 an hour to do something. And when I sat back and looked at that and thought, well, we're doing that for a landlord, or we're doing that for a seller, or we're doing this, I ended up pushing back and going, well, no, actually, if you want us to do that, we'll charge for it. And I think there's all that stuff about being nice I'll just do it as a favour to a landlord because they've asked me nicely, not realising actually that's just taken an hour of my time and it's cost the business 50 quid or 55 quid. That person could have been doing something else to earn another 500 quid. So, I think people don't understand profit, or I don't think the clients understand profit. So when you go and pitch for a business as a brand, and we would go in at 1.25% as our standard fee, and somebody would be going in at 0.5%, then the seller will go for 0.5% because it's cheaper. I literally had the same conversation yesterday with a mortgage broker that's just bought a rental property, and I said, the agent wants to charge me this. I'm thinking about managing it myself. What do you think? I said, well, if you manage it yourself, you're an idiot because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but you're looking at the cost, not the value. So and that all comes back into profit again, that anybody can buy on price, but you've got to make money to be able to survive. And if you come back to the budget last week, where minimum wage has gone up, capital gains has gone up, literally everything's gone up, which is all going to nail the agent. And people don't actually see that. They just say, well, they're charging 1,500 quid and they're charging 2.5 grand. People don't see the on cost because I don't think a lot of businesses look at what they are. They just go for the volume and go for the turnover.
I also think that people don't realise in our industry how expensive it is to be an estate agent. I don't think staff often realise that, and definitely the public don't realise that we've got a very small profit margin as estate agents because of the high costs. That's a big topic which people don't often discuss because of the nature of the industry and because we don't want to get the violins out. But actually, it's really difficult, to make it work as an estate agent because of how high, just to get to barrier of entry one, it is to run an estate agency. So, I think you're totally right in that. It's when you've got the profit, especially with everything that's just gone on with the budget, and how expensive it's now going to be to have staff, and people will be expecting pay rises at the end of the year. But a lot of people's pay rises, if you've got 5, 10 staff, 15 staff, your pay rise has just been nuked by the budget, basically.
And then it literally all comes back to fees, doesn't it? Literally all come back to fees of what you're going to charge, the client at the end of the day. So all linked, and just people don't get it. Even staff don't get it. That they just want to, if they're employed, they just get a wage, and I think the big difference between what I said earlier about company brand, personal brand, coming back to that. I think if you've got the likes of Avocado or EXP or the Avenue or whatever, where they're employing business owners, then they do want to make money. And I think that you guys probably drum into them that you've got to make money to survive. We looked at, so I'm sure we'll come onto this later, but when we were looking to expand, if I was going to start up a new branch, I estimated it was going to cost, I'd have to put in 250 to 300 grand just to start a new sort of in-person branch where you could go and buy something and for not that much more that's already running and trade on the reputation of it. But people don't get our industry, and also the fact that I think probably 90+% is we don't get paid until people move. So if people pull out because I don't know, they've changed their mind or the budget's just happened and it's going to cost them a load more cash, then we don't get paid unless you've got exit fees and all those kind of things, which we did employ in the end. But people don't get that, and we suck up all the costs. And I don't think it's until you've got a pipeline going and you've got cash coming through that you can actually start supporting the ones that fall through, because you're paying for it going forward.
Yeah, it kills you. It kills you when you're starting out, doesn't it? Do you think your focus on profit helped you exit the business? And is that focus and looking at the bottom line always been something that you've had as a skill, or is it something that you've learned more recently?
So it was one of those things that you learn by your mistakes. So my first business I set up in 2004, which was sort of, it was online before it was online. It's called Your Property Web. Your Property on the Web was the premise behind it. And even back then we had cheap fees. So I just showed you my first newspaper clipping. But I was a bit younger back then, and we didn't do lettings. We actually started from my back bedroom. We progressed to an office, and then the shop below us became available, which was a Belvoir shop, because they moved to a different premises. So we moved in there. We actually had the same colours as Belvoir, red and black. And we used to get people coming in all the time saying, "Oh, have you got any properties to rent?" I'm like, "No, you need to get to Belvoir around the corner," because we didn't do lettings at the time, because nobody wanted to get involved in that 50 quid a month racket, because it was all a waste of space, waste of money. I want to go for the big bucks over here for the selling.
Yeah.
And we did quite well then. So we started in 2004. We had a couple of branches in the end, but it all went tits up in the recession, because literally mortgage went off a cliff and we didn't have lettings. All the people that had lettings just carried on, lost their sales, but we went tits up. And the thing that I learned from that was any money that we had in the bank at the time, then I'd just suck it out and take it out and go on the lash as a youngster back then, a bit younger. Go out on the lash. So, back then I was picking up 5 or 10 grand a month, but we had no money left in the bank. So when it went tits up, it went tits up, and literally ended up with nothing. So then I had a break for 5 years, set up Next Place in 2014. I think one of the very first thing that I did then was started lettings, although quietly, and because it wasn't my skill set, it grew specifically in the last 4 years before I exited. And I left a load of money in the bank. So when I exited, there was high six figures, because I didn't keep taking the money out of the bank. So it was a learning from a mistake, that you take all the money out, you got nothing to survive, or you leave it in and you've got the opportunity to survive for a couple of years by not selling anything. And I think that changed in me when I started the business. I think after that, when I started getting involved with people like Stephen Brown and John Paul, just looking at process and things like that, and concentrating more on the profit as opposed to the turnover. And yeah, we did change costs quite a bit over the past few years, and we upped our fees quite a bit as well to cover it, to go it from both angles. I would rather have done less business at a higher fee than run around like headless chicken. And I'm not bothered about that. Here's my Rightmove pie chart that says, look, we sell all of these, and aren't we great because we're number one? I'll be happy being at number 3 or 4 knowing that we probably earn as much money as the people at number one, but we haven't got as much cost, and I can go home at night and not be stuck with a phone to my ear.
So, Anton, on the difference between the two, obviously you've mentioned the difference day to day or month to month, I should say, on the cash flow, etc. What was you mentioned you were looking at buying, you were looking at actively buying before exiting. So what was the thought process behind that? Was it the fact that actually to start a new office, is so expensive that it's easier to buy? And what was that whole buying experience like from your point of view as a business owner looking to acquire an acquisition effectively?
So I think the first thing I had to do before that, and this is one thing I learned from John Paul, is just, although my background is IT and software, and we had shitloads of software in the business for everything. We were there was barely any paper knocking around. I wanted to look at how my business looked. So Stephen Brown always used to say that if you had a 6-month sabbatical, what had happened to the business? And I think at some points in my business, it would have gone tits up. And I remember going on holiday, and you guys have probably done it with your iPad or with your laptop to do some work while you're away, because if you didn't do it, didn't pay the rents as an example, then it'd all go tits up. So I think the first thing that I learned was I needed to get my own house in order before I could step away from it, because there's no point having a good to great branch here and going and stepping into another one over there, because that one would suffer while you're trying to deal with this one. So I spent quite too much time, actually, I think, because, again, the other thing that I learned leading the branch and owning the business is nobody's going to be as good as you are. As the business owner, nobody cares more than you, so you can pay somebody 50 or 100 grand a year. They're still not going to be that bothered. They're still going to pick up the paycheck and at the end of the month go off. So I got my own house in order, first of all, systems, processes, make sure the profit was in the right place. But I did want to grow, because I also didn't want to be the person sitting in somebody's front room pitching to a client for a sale. So I had to bring backfill people to bring that. But when I started looking to manage 2 or more branches, it was amazing how bad some of the branches were at managing their own stuff. Nobody knew their numbers. Again, everybody was looking at turnover. I remember I looked at one business that wasn't a too dissimilar size to us. They were turning over half of what we were. Nice brand and everything else. It was sort of a satellite office. But when you looked under the hood, their sales fees were 1,200 quid. Their lettings fees were 5% fully managed on some others, 550 quid. But they sold it in the end. It wasn't for me, but they sold it. It would have involved opening a new branch in another area, so it wouldn't have worked financially. But I wanted to take that helicopter view in. Coming back to that, I didn't want to be in the business. I wanted to be on it. Unfortunately, I never got there, because I never found the right acquisition, and then the tables were turned on me, and somebody said, "Do you want to sell?" I said, "Okay." What's occurring? So I thought about it and made some moves myself, and here we are, 2 months in, nearly to the day.
And talk us through the process then. So you've got the business in order. So that's first piece of advice, I think, for people if they are trying to build to this, that make sure that all your processes is in place and your profit is where it needs to be. Easier said than done, of course. Yeah. But a long process. You said it took longer than expected. How long did it take, Anton?
Sorry, what took longer to get through?
To get your house in order before you then started looking to buy.
Well, COVID decided to come along in the middle.
Yeah.
So it extended it, but I reckon it probably take easily a good year to 18 months to make sure everything was nailed on. That is putting in training you all, writing down all the processes, doing all the videos around that, making sure everybody ticks all the right boxes. So there was quite a lot going on, and then looking at the your assets, how you run your P&L and what you run through and how you do it. So there was quite a bit involved from quite a few people, obviously led by me at the start, just to try and make it look good. If I was a buyer, what would I want to see is where it started. And for all you guys and girls out there that are running small branches, then your business is worth less with you in it. So if you are thinking of exiting, then you need to have a plan to be not working in the business and be in the front of it, because once you go, essentially the business goes. And that comes back to your very first thing, very first question, when I said I'd split it down into three sections. Is the personal brand when you start off, I think, is really important. And as you go on, so one of my guys had his own social media handles under Next Play, so he could go and promote himself and do what he wanted there. There's the business brand and making money and the profit that we've spoken about. But one thing I don't hear that many people speaking about is lettings. And your sales business is worth jack shit, to be honest, because it's almost goodwill. It's the lettings business where the money from a buyer is generated, and that's typically all they're bothered about. And some people that I spoke to just wanted to buy the lettings book, weren't interested in sales at all, because it has no value until it completes. And people that are looking to sell, there are two types of sale. That was an asset sale and a share sale, and they both impact you differently, depending on which way you want to exit. So that's that, and that's another interesting conversation if and when you wanted to get into it. But I changed my mindset and then looked to exit, and then streamlined everything towards either buying or exiting, and I ended up exiting in the end.
And interesting, you had that change. Sorry, Mark. I just find it interesting that it kind of, in the end, you'd kind of geared yourself up to be foundationally compliant ready, so that you could add to the foundations. But in the end, kind of the sensible thing was to make the exit, and you'd built such a good, strong foundation that actually it was really appealing to someone else to come in and purchase it, which was great.
Well, when I exited, there was a 6-week sort of handover, 2 week in person, 4 weeks over the phone, and I probably spent in total over that period no more than a day having to deal with anything. The biggest problem we had was with the bank. Everything else was, it's as if I weren't there. So the team were a testament to that. They didn't need me in the end, which is great, and I think that's where you want to get to as an owner. Is well, unless you don't. But when you're exiting or buying, you need to be not involved in the business, because you can't be in more than one place. But it wasn't a hard decision, to be honest, Ian. When somebody says, "Do you want to sell?" I was like, "Yeah, okay," because I've just got the money. I can go again if I want. Although I did let go of a fantastic business, and sometimes you do think, "Did I do the right thing?" But I'm happy where I'm at. I've got no cares at the minute. I said to a lot of my friends, I'd just be happy sitting at home in my pants earning 20 grand a month. Thanks. That's where I'd like to get to. I'm not there yet, obviously, but yeah, I'm not disappointed that I've sold instead of buying.
What advice would you give to people? Because I think there is a lot of business owners out there now that are a little bit older, or are in the view of exit might be something they're considering or they would like to do. And I think with the budget and the way that things are changing as well, from like entrepreneurs relief and stuff like that, and we've got steps from 10 to 14 to 18%. I think it's 2028 it goes up to 18%. Shrewd people will look at that and think, right, I've got between now and the next kind of 3.5 years to have my business exited at the most tax efficient way. What would be the top 2 things that you would tell to that person listening that's actually thinking, right, I'd need to exit in the next 3 years for that reason alone?
Wow, build your lettings book. Number one,
build lettings. Yeah,
build 100% build lettings. If you do nothing else, build lettings. Now that's obviously on a downward trajectory, but with everything that the government's doing, we're trying to nail landlords at the moment. But I've just completed on a property last week. So budget happened on the Wednesday. Luckily, I exchanged on the Wednesday and completed on Friday. So there are still landlords out there buying. In my opinion, it's, although there's all the other stuff that's coming in, the rent bills and all that kind of stuff, there's still a brilliant opportunity, I think, because there's more people looking for the same amount of rental properties at the moment. So that's still a buoyant market. So definitely grow your rental book. In terms of growing your rental book, then there's no point winning stuff at 5 or 6% managed, because your buyer doesn't want that shit either. When you eventually come, so you've got to be strong in that market. But coming back to it, you've got to add value. So what are people? Uh, I can't think of the words I'm going to get out, but basically you've got to add value to the client. So the landlord's got to know what you do.
Yeah.
The way they know what you do is you've got to put it out there. You've got to hold some events. So Luke Sinclair was doing his landlord first stuff. We've held some landlord events where we had people coming to us to talk to them about various things. We'd have a tax advisor, mortgages, solicitors, all that kind of stuff. Do you buy in a company or do you buy personally? So all those kind of things, all people want to know. So I think you're just going to put yourself out there and find and grow your business like that. So do lettings is number one. Number two, pull yourself out of the business. Don't be involved in it, at least on a day-to-day, going out and seeing clients all the time. I ended up in the end just being an egg, because I was in the office. I was able to manage what was going on in the office, speak to clients, but essentially I've just been on holiday for 8 weeks. Nobody's really noticed that I've gone. Somebody else has stepped into my shoes and picked up my job, so dead easy. And number three, look at your costs. So look at what you're paying for. Periodically go through. So like you should do personally, what direct debits have I got coming out? What software have I got? Make a note of what softwares you've got, when the end dates on the contracts are, what the renewal terms are, because there's a lot that will roll you over for a year. You need to know when that year is. What phone system have you got? Are you tied into a ridiculous 7-year contract? So met a local agent the other day. They're 3 years into a 7-year contract. I'm like, what? But you shake your head, Mark. But there's people doing it all the time.
Yeah.
Ridiculous print management strategies that they're cost per click for, I don't know, the next 3 years. Why? You don't need it. So they're the three things: grow your lettings book, get out of the business, and look at all of your contracts, and can what you don't need, because the 50 quid a month or the 100 quid a month you pay to something over there that you don't need, all add up. Do you need all of the add-ons for Rightmove? In my opinion, no. Do you need to be on Zoopla on the market? Do you need to be on either? Should you be doing more on social media to promote your presence? So I think there's a few things in there that people should definitely look at. Even if you're not selling, you should just be looking at doing that anyway, but doing it profitably. So do you know what your costs are? Do you know what your business costs are? Are you running around like headless chicken, just adding money on at any cost and doing a let only at 300 quid? I think there was somebody around here doing a let only for 250 quid plus that. You can't do the right job for that. But the landlord doesn't know if they charge 250 quid and you charge 610%, that what's the difference? They don't know until there's an issue. And that's exactly what I said to the lady yesterday, is that it's all well and good, but until you've got an issue, then you'll find out what you pay for.
And Anton, when you were looking to buy, or when people were talking to you, when you were talking to the agents that were brokering the sale, for example, or purchase, you've mentioned sales being worth minimal, goodwill effectively, lettings being the big driver. What about other revenue streams within a estate agency? What about kind of your mortgages or probate elements of things, referral partnerships, any other sort of side businesses that sit within it? Was that ever a conversation that was kind of looked at and reviewed? And is that something that's worth doing, going through the energy of bringing your own mortgages in-house as an example?
Okay, so there's I sent Mark a picture yesterday when I said I was thinking about, when I sat down and planned it. I've got a whiteboard in front of my desk here with all those three elements on, and one of them is about opportunities. So in terms of going for, if you've got a business, opportunities going forward, one of the things that I did and qualified for this year was my CMAP, with the purpose of starting up so this is how much I wasn't looking to sell. I did my CMAP with a view to starting up a financial services business as well, to run alongside the agency. There's great opportunity out there in third party stuff like financial services, referring conveyancing, surveying, all those kind of things. So there's a load of value in add-on business. But honestly, it was never a conversation that I never had. Probably for a couple of reasons. One, I was only a single branch, so the people that were looking to buy me were mostly single branches, or people looking to expand like me. Obviously the revenue is still important to it, but in terms of factoring it into a selling price, it wasn't really relevant because referral monies coming in from conveyancing, from financial services, wasn't really core to the business. If you had another business running alongside your existing business, then that's two sales. It's not one. And one thing I would say is that if you do have multiple businesses, is try and keep them separate, because it's more complicated to buy a business that has. So the recent business sold by us that had sales, normal lettings, block management, commercial, and surveying, and the PI runoff on a couple of those is really high. And if I looked at that business, I'd go, that ain't for me, sorry. But there's definitely opportunity in those add-on elements, Ian, if you continue to run the business. But from a sales point of view, they're slightly irrelevant because people are only looking at your lettings income and your sales income and where it's at. And then with your lettings income, this is probably one of the biggest things from your lettings income. You need to understand what your tenant find fees are, just tenant find if you do that, what your managed setup fees are, what your monthly management income is, what your commission is from contractors or whatever, and any other bits. So you need to break those down in a P&L into accounts, because you'll get different multiples from a buyer of each of those things. So yeah, coming back to one of these three things and sorting out your accounts and stuff is make sure you've got all those account things set out so that people can identify exactly what they are. When I was selling, I interviewed. It's exactly the same as selling a house, selling a business. To be honest, the process is pretty much the same. You have agents out, or they don't come out and see you, really. They do it over the phone or via Zoom or whatever. They want those numbers. That's all they're interested in is those numbers, because that's how they'll set an asking price. And it is interesting how each agent valued it multiples differently on each of those things.
What's the range, Anton? What's the range of those multiples that people discussed?
So 25%. So it was. God, you're testing my metal now, Ian, because this was going back a bit. But the multiple of, in fact, no, it was more than that. I can't even add up. The multiple of managed income was between 1.2 times and 2 times.
Okay.
So there was a 0.8. So what's 0.8 on 2/3, isn't it? 66%.
It's a lot, isn't it? It's a big gap. It's like pricing a house at 400 grand or 650.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And do you know what? When you get into that position, and I've also been through that process as well recently for a friend. He asked me to get some valuations on his property. And they range by literally 75 grand. But it's the same process. So somebody will give you a price, but which one do you believe, or how do you believe it? And then it's down to negotiation at the end of the day. How much does somebody want your business? So it's literally exactly the same as a house. It's backed up. So if the buyer is using a funder, then they will also look at your accounts and pull your accounts apart. So your accounts have got to be the dog's bollocks, really, if you want to sell. You've seriously got to look at that. But yeah, it was a big difference, 1.2 to 2 times. Now I thought 2 times in the good days when Le Monde were buying anything, they were buying at 2%, but 2 times, sorry, but they're not now. 1.2 was probably a bit low, trying to get a quick sale. So I think probably 1.5 to 1.8, depending on what you are and where you are, is probably a multiple to work off. I would always go on the lower value because I'm a pessimist, not an optimist, and I want to know what I'm going to get in my pocket. And when I was looking and making offers, actually there's a couple of sales purchases that didn't go through because the vendors weren't getting as much as they thought they were getting after all the costs. Because bear in mind, in the completion account, you've got so I completed in September. Then we had to take into account corporation tax that's due in January, corporation tax due on the money that we've made between April and September. All those other things that can equate to a shed load of cash that you're not going to get at the end of the process.
And can we just talk? Which really interesting in terms of the numbers and the multiples. I think that will be useful for people who are maybe starting to consider this process, whether it's a vision, a goal, or a target, 1 year, 5 year, 10 years. It's going to be really useful for people to hear this and have the chat. But can I just talk about a little bit on the emotional side of it, Anton, if that's all right? You said that that you were already out of the business, and I imagine that makes the transition a little bit easier. But when you've had something for 10 years and built it, no doubt it's a little bit like your baby, and we probably don't talk about that side of it. So how have the emotions been, and how did you feel when that sale actually successfully went through?
Well, at the start, my wife was like, no, we're not doing it. Don't want to do it. Yeah, what we're going to do? Absolutely no way. I think one of the things that people don't, or their employees don't see, is how hard it is on the business owner. So you've got 7, 8, 10 people's mortgages that you've got to sort out. You've got to make the decision on this, that, the other. Do we take that business? Do we not take that business? And it does stress you out a bit, to be fair. And sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. Perhaps I looked into it a bit too much, but it did stress you a little bit. And I have to say, on completion, it was a complete weight. Thinking I've only got to worry about myself now. I haven't got to worry about everybody else. One of the key things that I wanted when I was selling the business is that it would have been easy to sell to an agent in my town. Because I would have liked to have bought from an agent in my town, because then you just go, right, thank you, I'll have all that revenue and income, I'll suck it into my branch and then get rid of everything over there, and then you've instantly got a hit to your bottom line in terms of profit. But one of the things that there was a few things that I was very insistent on, but the main thing was that I didn't want to see anything change in terms of the staff. So I wanted to make sure the staff to be looked after, that there was a space for everybody, that somebody wasn't going to come in and just go, yeah, we're going to get rid of you, and you. So that was the most important thing for me. And it was just lifted, instant lifting, that I haven't got to think about that anymore. Because I think when you do run a single branch, everything is personal. It's everybody personally. It's not as if you've got loads of branches and you can just go, right, we'll get rid of them, sack them, we'll move that over there, we'll do this, we'll do that. Everybody impacts you personally, and it was an instant lift, and my wife saw the change in me straight away.
Interesting.
It's your baby, isn't it? It's your baby. You went your business.
It is,
especially when you started it from scratch.
Yeah, and because I wasn't thinking of exiting, I don't have a plan. I still don't have a plan. We're 2 months in. I still don't have a plan. I'm interested. I've had loads of nice conversations and different conversations. No, I'm not in the business. I've been to networking events and I've met a few people and done a couple of different jobs for people that needed a hand on various different things. But I don't have a plan. I'd like a plan, but I was fucking bored after a week. And I got the opportunity to set up a financial services business, servicing 6 branches, and have all the leads from day one, bang, like that. And I said no. It's not. I don't think that's what I want to do. So I took the decision that I'm going to hang off until Christmas and then start weighing up what I'm going to do after Christmas. But I'm still really bored. Really, really bored. I have read quite a few books I don't read. I've listened to a lot of podcasts. I've been going to the gym, believe it or not. And that's actually the gym, not Jim's Calf, next to the gym. I've just bought a property. I'm stripping that out at the minute because that's having a load of work done on it. So I am looking for my next opportunity. I'm not sure what that is. It might be in a garden centre business. It might be doing something else. I think the skills are transferable. I've been every idea that I've had so far has been property related. I'm just trying to broaden my horizons to think outside of property at the moment and see what other options there are. But coming back to your question at the start, yeah, instant lift, no stress until I start the next one.
But a bit of boredom, so that's to be expected. Have you been through the process and thought, oh, have I done the right thing here?
Yeah, I have. Because I've still got clients phoning me on my personal mobile, messaging me on social media. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? I'm helping a landlord at the moment dispose of some properties for him or with him. Sorry. So yeah, it is real boredom. But I don't. But luckily, I don't need to rush.
Yeah.
I'm not going from one job to the other, and I can think about my next move, which is a nice position to be in. To be perfectly honest, we've been able to.
Like, I was going to say, it sounds like using the time wisely. Although there's a bit of boredom, there's time to kind of reset. It's been an intense decade of building that company and then successfully selling it, and congrats on that. But now it's about that reset, understanding, what's next, what's going to light you up, what are you going to enjoy doing, what are you going to be involved with. But you've got all of that legwork that you did of building up the foundations within the company have allowed you to now have that time to do things the way that you want to do it next time, which is, a nice privilege to be in because of the hard work that you did to get there. So, that's quite good for people to listen to, because it means you're not rushing from A to B, because you've earned the right to kind of have this window of opportunity to review things, which is great.
And I think I would definitely do things differently second time. So I'm not looking to set up another estate agency, but I would definitely plan my exit from the start rather than thinking about it halfway through, because there's always going to be an exit. My kids aren't interested at all. One wants to be a pilot, one wants to be in the police or the armed forces. So they've got zero interest, so I don't need to do anything for them. I would, from anybody new looking at, I would definitely look at holding companies from day one, trusts from day one, just different ways to manage your money out. If you've got trusts and holding companies and those things kind of set up, if you've got kids of any age, you can get money out of the business through them. So there's loads of different things that I've learned as time's gone on that would help me now be more profitable in my next businesses. Lots of lessons learned, but all come from an estate agency sale, rarely, or been involved in a business for the last 10 years. So if somebody is looking to sell, then there are some agents out there. Some are more social media based than others. I wouldn't necessarily say that's the best place to go. I would keep your options open, listen to everybody. I'm happy to have a chat with anybody offline if they've got any questions that they want to raise in confidence, obviously. I'll sign NDAs or whatever somebody wants. But yeah, there's lots of agents. And now I've been when I was looking to buy, it was a pain in the arse, because you're getting agents to come back to you. And now I understand why they don't come back to you. But I didn't at the start. And I was just like, well, if you're an estate agent, you'd be shit, because I'm never going to start. In fact, I made a decision that the agent that I sold through in the end, I proactively decided I'm not going to sell through you, because they didn't come back to me on a couple that I was looking to purchase. I don't think they made their message clear as to why they didn't. But now I know. And that was Adam J. Walker, if anybody's interested to hear about that. I had a really good experience with them in the end. Really good experience. They were the most expensive, though. But coming back to that value and cost that I mentioned earlier on, I think they added the most value.
That's good to know.
It goes right back to you talked there about fees, and you compared how selling a business is similar to selling a house. But as most good estate agents that will listen to this podcast won't be the cheapest agent. So why you would then be a massive hypocrite if you then choose the cheapest agent to sell your business when you're at that stage. And I think it's really interesting as well. We'll let you go very shortly, Anton. But I think it's really interesting something that you said when you were talking there about the sort of next plans, about how transferable you think the skills are, having built the business. And I think the key part of that is successfully built the business that doesn't rely on you. I think that's probably the difference to what a lot of people are going through, because once you've built the business and got out the business, you're then able to do that in another business, in another industry, and you're pretty confident those skills are transferable by the sounds of things.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's an important message for people to listen to. You don't have to, if you consider yourself a business owner rather than an estate agent, that's a fairly big transformation to people, but you've got to make that transformation by the sounds of things if you are going to exit the business successfully.
100% you've got to. I mentioned that I met a local agent the other day, really nice guy, been doing it for years, and I made some suggestions to his wife, actually, that they're both in the business. He's there doing vowels every day, doing 6 vowels a day. She's managing one of the offices. Their kids have grown up really without them. They don't spend enough time with their kids. And I said, just get some valuers in to replace you. I said, no, because that's the bit that they enjoy. And I said, well, until when you want to sell, then it's going to be an issue. So yeah, you've got to get your bit and automate stuff as well. So I mentioned about, we employed a shed load of technology that some of it is very well worth having, very, very well worth having. And I think two of the biggest things, if we're ready to wrap up, that two of the biggest things that I think that we implemented that did a couple of things. One, saved us time, and two, managed to help us negotiate better for clients. Is on a side is we implemented a pre-tenancy form and a property offer form, and both of those I think saved us a load of time. And made us a load of raving fans, to be perfectly honest. If anybody wants any more information on them, then I'm more than happy to give some.
And how's the best way for people to get hold of you, Anton? Then, so if this has raised some questions, which inevitably there'll be some people who've listened, that relates. You've offered loads of help already, but you've suggested that maybe you'd be willing to help people a little bit more as well. How should people reach out?
Find me on LinkedIn. There's not many Anton Plackowskis.
No, we'll make sure we spell your name right in the show notes.
That would be really nice. But I think tech is 2 key things. If I can give two shout outs, there's Luke St. Clair with Agent Connect, the phone system and WhatsApp solution. 100%. That's WhatsApp. If you're not using WhatsApp in your business, then get a grip, will you? Luke's Agent Connect is phenomenal, and also Agent Response from Martin Nettleton. That saves a shed load of time and will help you with your property offer forms and your pre-tenancy forms. I can't tell you how much that helped save time. If your lettings business is like any other lettings business, that you get a property on at the right price, you get 1 billion inquiries, then the pre-tenancy form will basically skip all that kind of stuff for you and help you sort the wheat from the chaff very easily, very quickly, and make sure you get the right tenant for the property.
Yeah, it's made a big difference to us, because there is so many inquiries that come in per property. So having an automated kind of response from a portal lead on a tenant so that you can qualify them and know the people to speak to, or the people to let down, via automation, just makes a huge difference. It's been great, Anton. Thank you for coming on and sharing and being so open with kind of the journey and where you sit at the moment now. And it'll be interesting to see what you do next. I'm sure we'll all be keeping a close eye. It'll be exciting to see. So yeah, congratulations on the sale.
Thanks,
and I look forward to seeing what comes next.
A massive thank you once again. We'll have to start again, Austin. Sorry, I don't know why. I was going to stumble over his name. I'm just going to call him Anton. I'm just going to
don't go with the surname.
Right, let's start again. A massive thank you once again to Anton for joining us today. Ian and I know Anton really well through the mastermind that we're part of, but it was interesting to dive deeper today about his business and find out that actually a lot of the stuff that he did was very intentional, took over a long period of time, and really interesting to hear that flip from buying to selling. It's not something that we've, talked about on the podcast before. We've not probably talked about exiting businesses on the podcast very much before either. So I think there was some really good value there. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. And I think if there's a big takeaway for anyone, it's knowing your numbers and having them written down and being aware of the key metrics which are going to make you more valuable. So therefore, you've got a target of what to work towards. Because at no point did he talk about market share. At no point did he talk about board percentage. He didn't talk about ROI on marketing channels. He spoke very specifically about, property management rates, what a landlord is worth, what a cost per acquisition is for a client, what a client is worth per hour, even, for the company, to know where you should be spending your time and not spending your time. And I think knowing those metrics means you've then got targets of where to work towards and where to grow. So that was the big takeaway for me is kind of knowing the numbers and knowing which numbers are important and which ones are just egotistical. And I think that was probably the thing that I'll thank Anton for, because it gets your mind thinking in a more strategic way rather than an ego-led way, and that's really important, I think, for people that are building a business with a view of one day selling it.
Yeah, and he talked about getting out of the business very, comprehensively. And of course, as estate agents, it's difficult to have those thoughts, to know the numbers, to be able to analyze them and plan to improve them if you are dealing with Mr. Smith at, 10 High Street because he's had an offer that isn't acceptable to him, or he's had a sale fall through or something like that. So I think those advice go hand in hand. You've got to have the brain space to be able to look at these things by getting out the business. Easier said than done, and something that you need to plan long term for, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It's, as the owner, if you've got a business, you have to make your role redundant, is the way to look at it. And once your role is redundant, it's the company's worth as much as it's going to be worth, because you're no longer a key figure within it. And some people struggle with that because they want to be the focus and the leader and the focus of attention. It's fine being a leader, but just don't be the operator that's keeping everything together. So that's quite important messaging, I think. Really interesting. Yeah, great podcast overall, I thought. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some important lessons to take away. And I think a bit of ego, get your ego out so that your business is worth more without you. I think that's probably one of the hard parts. As I was sitting there thinking, there's some things that I need to do here to improve the business. But I think one of the longest podcasts that we've done in a long time. I now need to rush off because my team meeting that we have every Tuesday starts in 2 minutes. So a massive thank you once again to Anton for joining us. If in doubt, you've got any questions that are raised from this, reach out, as he said to him on LinkedIn. I'm not going to try and butcher his surname. I will put it in the show notes because I really don't want to upset him by doing that. But as you know, we do this because we love our industry. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please reach out on social, share it with colleagues, or share it out on social media. I'm Mark Worrell. He's Ian Macbeth. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again next week.